Please, there's just one more thing. One more thing. One more miracle.
Tofu.
For me. Don't be dead. Would you, just for me, just stop it. Stop this.
After over a month-long hiatus, your favorite Commander YouTuber is finally back. And my mouth can move now. There was some crazy news regarding the Commander ban list. One of the biggest problems with the format has finally been solved. They unbanned Worldfire.
Who can say where the road goes?
Okay, the big news is that they banned Golos. They've banned commanders before, but this time it's a little different because Golos was probably the most popular commander, and nobody really saw this ban coming. I mean, who would have thought that after surviving commanders like Urza, Korvald, Chulainn, Omnath, Najeela, and Edgar Markov, that Golos would be the one to finally break the format?
So, who broke it? I'm not mad, I just want to know. I broke it.
I tend to be on the side of not banning things whenever possible, but at the same time I can kind of see where the rules committee is coming from on this one. He's definitely the best option for any 5-color good stuff deck, and he's also just really good in any themed deck. Like, Golos is probably a better 5-color Sliver commander than Sliver Queen, and that's just not okay. In fact, Golos is probably one of the better commanders in almost any color combination. If you took an average monocolor deck and just replaced the commander with Golos, and then threw in one Cascading Cataracts to fetch with Golos to activate his ability, your deck would probably be better. The problem is how broad of a commander he is. Like, sure, Ursa's a super strong commander and probably more powerful than Golos, but he only synergizes with artifact decks. Whereas Golos is a super good commander that synergizes with any deck that has cards in it. I'm not saying he deserves to be banned, I'm just saying the format will probably be a little more diverse now that he's gone. But now for the part that we actually care about. Worldfire is unbanned, baby! I have personally wanted this card to be unbanned for years. So I'm sure that overall, everyone's probably super happy with this BNR announcement.
Ow! Yeah, now we're talking! Yeah! Ow!
So what can we do with this card? Well, the good news is that Worldfire makes everyone's life total 1, so you only have to deal 3 total damage to win the game after you play it. The bad news is that it exiles everything. The easiest thing you could do is play a Zergo Bellstriker deck, float 10 mana, play Worldfire, and then play Zergo after the Worldfire resolves. Then you just hit people with your 2/2 until you win. But you probably don't want to be playing a 9 mana sorcery in your aggro deck. The second option is you can use something like Oblivion Ring to exile one of your own creatures. Then when you play Worldfire, the Oblivion Ring will get exiled and you'll get your creature back and you can just hit people. But this is really bad. While you're busy O-ringing your own creatures, the other players are probably just going to run over you. The third option is you can put some cards in exile that you can cast later. That way you can still play them after the Worldfire. Like, imagine you spin Golos into Worldfire and Chandra Torch of Defiance, or... Oh, wait a sec. But anyways, after looking through a ton of options, I think I found the one deck where Worldfire is an amazing finisher. And it's all based off of another super old card that I've been trying to make work in Commander for a long time. On March 23rd, 2016, I saw a deck on MTG Goldfish that was entirely built around trying to cast a Worldfire using another card, Spellweaver Helix. The Helix exiles 2 sorceries from one graveyard, and then if anyone plays one of the sorceries, you get to play a copy of the other sorcery for free. So what you do is you get Worldfire and some cheap card like Gitaxian Probe into your graveyard, then you play the Helix exiling both of them, and then if you play another Gitaxian Probe, you get a free Worldfire. I thought this was the most amazing combo I'd ever seen, and I immediately wanted to put it in a commander deck. But there were 2 huge issues. 1, Worldfire was banned, and 2, Spellweaver Helix doesn't really work in a singleton format because you need multiple copies of a sorcery in order to trigger it. But despite that huge setback, there is one deck in Commander that came out pretty recently that can actually utilize the Helix really well. And that deck is Dragon's Approach. Dragon's Approach is a 3-mana sorcery that lets you deal 3 damage to each of your opponents, and if you play a bunch of them, you get a free dragon. And it specifically says you can play as many copies as you want in your deck. So if you have Worldfire and Dragon's Approach in your graveyard, you can play the Helix to exile both of them. Then if you play another Dragon's Approach, the Helix will trigger and you'll get to play a free Worldfire, putting everyone to 1 life. And then the Dragon's Approach you cast will resolve and deal 3 damage to all of your opponents and you instantly win. This combo is already pretty bananas, but what makes it even better is that the Helix and Worldfire are both good outside of the combo in a Dragon's Approach deck. If you just have the Helix, you can play it and exile 2 Dragon's Approaches. Then whenever you play a Dragon's Approach, you just get another one. But what about if you just have the Worldfire? Well, the most common commander for Dragon's Approach decks is Sir Kara. And she lets you exile cards from the top of your deck whenever she, or an instant or sorcery you control, deals damage to an opponent. She can also tap to deal 1 damage. So if you tap Sir Kara and exile a Dragon's Approach, then you can play Worldfire, float 3 mana, and then play the Dragon's Approach from exile after the Worldfire resolves. So Spellweaver Helix and Worldfire are both individually good in Sir Kara Dragon's Approach decks, and if you get both of them, you get to pull off the ridiculous combo. You might want to practice your evil laugh for when you burn down the entire world and destroy your opponents.
Yes! We've defeated you for all time! You will never rise from the ashes of your shame and humiliation!
It's trivia time. Our question from last week was, what is the only Magic card with the word invincible in its name? And the answer is Invincible Hymn. This card is an 8-mana sorcery that lets you change your life total to be equal to the number of cards left in your deck. Invincible Hymn is absolute garbage, but it's also really cool and fun, so I kinda want to build a deck around it. The question for this week is about Sir Kara and her Cycle of Knights from Throne of Eldraine. Uncommon commanders tend to get a bad rap for being pretty forgettable, and sadly this cycle was no exception. Sir Conrad made a pretty big splash, but Sir Eleonora and Sir Farron were kinda underwhelming. But of course, the worst card by far in the cycle was the white one, Sir Alan. Even though this commander came out less than 2 years ago, I could not for the life of me remember anything that it did until I looked it up. That's how incredibly forgettable this commander was. So today's trivia question for a whopping 3.5 tofu points is, what does Sir Alan do? I'll give you a hint. He has 1 keyword ability and 1 triggered ability. Don't forget to subscribe if you don't want to miss the answer in the next video. Thanks for watching.